First of all, it's a great pleasure to be here, also because I have known the center for as long as I know Manchu. It's more or less the preoccupation of the past 20 years that I've been learning Manchu and I've been teaching it. So this is actually directly from my own experience as well. And I think I can say that I know every single center and around 95% of all the people who teach Manchu around the world. So this is I can represent them too. So this is our this is my summary of what we're doing in order to help the Manchu community in China to revitalize their language. So this is a successful revitalization project that I'm presenting here. I'm focusing here on the 19th century because this is still where we get most of our literature from and what inspires them. But so this short talk will span a time frame of around 1,000 years, but I'll try to concentrate on the 21st century. Thank you. So this is Asia. It's a map which I appreciate because it shows the borders of the Soviet Union, and it also shows the expanse of Siberia, which is the region which the speakers of the Tungusic languages of this area have in common with the speakers of Tungusic languages which are spoken over here. So this is a map which straddles the entire width of the northern hemisphere on the Eurasian side, and that's important to remember because the Manchus, as much as other communities that we talked about already yesterday, have more in common than what separates them. And if anything separates them, it's their languages, because the cultural background from an anthropological viewpoint is very similar, and that is determined by the nature that they inhabit and certain beliefs. And one of the major beliefs is the belief in the sky as God or as the universal force. And there, of course, you get a number of religious customs that are much later derived, and perhaps this term you have come across, Tengriism, which is, of course, which appears in many different languages. The Manchus do not use it. They have it as a loan, but as a loan from the Mongolian. So they call it Apka. So this is their term, and if they use it with the same sense of awe. And later, derived from this, you get religious terms that any anthropologist can tell you can be traced back to this period. Important to know that for the construction of the Manchu identity that we find today, these terms are being referred to all the time, although from at least the 18th century onwards, they weren't followed anymore. So this is a kind of nostalgic reference to a time that either never existed or that they overemphasize in order to create markers of ethnic identity, which they then use in conjunction with learning their language skills. And of course, the most important person is he, in this case, can also be a she. That's the shaman. So it's the emphasis on the shamanistic traditions. Why is this important for learning Manchu? Because there's a disproportionate number of writings in Manchu on shamanic cults, which are taken into the writing system, which we refer to as Manchu today, from the very beginning, and they're given a very specific name in the Manchu, in the Qing. So the Qing dynasty is the last dynasties of China's internal records. Li Bu, the Board of Rites, has a separate section for Manchu customs, because the last dynasty in China was headed by Manchus. And this is where we get a major difference to, I think, all the languages that we've discussed today, the Manchus are a minority population. They're recognized as one of the 52 minorities in the People's Republic of China, as one of the 5 minorities in the Republic of China, in the original 1911 constitution, and in the Qing period as well. They're one of the most important minorities, but they're actually the ones who lead the empire, and none of the other groups has ever led an empire of the size of China. So this is a legacy which actually cost them very dearly in the end, but for the people who are part of the Manchu ethnicity, this is incredibly important, because it's nowadays a badge of pride and honor, whereas during much of the People's Republic's period, this was the wrong class background and could have very bad consequences if you were found out to be amongst them. Here's a little improvised ethnic map. It's a mishmash of language areas and empires that actually existed, but the most important thing is that we actually have 2 Manchu empires in history. This one is the first one, it's the Jin, and we get this term, Jurchen or Jushen, in different romanizations. They are the Manchus. So don't let anyone mislead you. This is not a new creation from the 17th century onwards. There is actually a historical root, and they go back to other they refer to here as Tungusic tribes, but of course any of these tribes are a potential, they are nations. So you have a Jurchen nation from the very beginning, and they in their purest form they would speak the language that is known as Manchu today. Of course, this is around 1200, so you see, I'm taking you forward in time to the 21st century is coming. This is the 17th century now. So who investigates them? The Russians. This is a very important element of the expansion of the Russian Empire, the Muscovite Empire, into Siberia, namely to provide a cartography of the individual ethnic groups that exist within Russia. Manchus in Russia, yes. Yes and no. But we have the northern Manchus. They are in Russia. They are within the borders that are later drawn up between the Qing and the Romanov Empire. So this is a map by a Dutch cartographer working for the Tsar. Massa, in his he provides a first sketch of the Tinhusenland, which is, of course, the Tungusic lands, the wild Tungus areas. A bit later, we get another very detailed ethnographic and very condemnatory cultural terms account of the Tungusic rites, Tungusic customs by a French scientist who worked for the Tsar as well. And what they do is they give us a clear idea of where the Tungusics peoples are at home. And you can see here that there is indeed a large concentration distributed in the northern parts of Siberia, but then also these pockets here, and these are the ones who form the Manchus. So what about the writing system? 5 minutes, okay. Writing system forms in the 17th century. It's directly loaned from Mongolian. The Mongols loan it from the that's what we see here. From the Uyghurs. The Uyghurs, where did they get it from? I follow you. This is the, here you get a few documents that show you the development of a script that you recognize if you know Aramaic, for example. So this is the Syriac. This is a script that is directly from the Middle East. It is used along the Silk Route and then taken into usage by the peoples of Xinjiang, Turkic peoples, so Uyghurs in today's word, with other ethnic groups as well. And that is taken over by the Mongols. The Mongols, they themselves, they are the direct precursor in cultural terms for the Manchus. And this is the, here we have them too. So this is by imperial decree, namely by the creator of the Manchus. The script is adopted with certain modifications. And how do we know that this is the case? Because it's spelled out very clearly. The ethnogenesis in this case is very clearly marked. You can ask me more about about the Manchus later. But now, how do we teach this, or how do Manchu people want to learn about this? They learn it firstly in the historical sense, namely by reconstructing the greatness of their people in historical terms. This can, for example, be followed by this. Take note of this name, Zhuang Jifa, who's an eminent Manchu linguist and historian as well. This is Tu Lishan was an employee of the Qing court who traveled through, on behalf of the empire, traveled through Central Asia and all of Russia, and gave very detailed accounts in Manchu of every single community that he found on the way. This is the Qing Empire. That's just a reminder where the boundaries are. This area is nowadays known as Manchuria. I put it in there because what happens during so why did the Manchus lose their ability to speak Manchu during the 19th century? That's the focus, because they were distributed in garrison communities. All these red dots that you see here, except for Hong Kong, this is Manchu Guangzhou, that's wrong. And importantly, here, it's not Kashgar, it's actually to the west of Kashgar. You have a community which is known 2 minutes, which is known as the Xibur. The Xibur are today the one community where you find the largest concentration of Manchu speakers. This we skip over. And then this is the banner system, very important. Every Manchu knows, even today, the unit that they belong to. And they also know the traditional values that go along with that. What are the chances of finding horse-riding Manchus today who shoot with arrows? Not so many, but it's part of the ethic that they want to share. This is in Taipei today. This is Zhuang Jifa, the teacher. This is the traditional way of teaching Manchu. This is, of course, I give you some more examples of the script. These are traditional 19th century koban. These are basically volumes that are used in order to teach Manchu. And here is another one, which is not Chinese, but it's Korean. So you can see that Manchu was also learned by Korean speakers with Hangul. So you can use it for to recreate the pronunciation of Korean during a certain period of time. The Last Emperor, that's the last emperor's own book where he was practicing different languages, including Manchu. And here, that's the last picture that you'll see. This is the essentially the learning objectives that all of our students have, or that we have as teachers, essentially to familiarize students who have, even if they're ethnically Manchus, but they haven't got Manchu in their families because it was suppressed after the revolution of 1911, to think of ways that interest them. And this is very much something where we have to take the language into the 21st century. And that's where computers are involved and everything that is important. And then most of them have a vague understanding of Chinese history. By reading Manchu texts, we can actually take them into the concrete setting. Certainly here, do we use romanization or any other kind of transliteration? No, we take them straight into Manchu script, and because otherwise they don't develop that confidence from the beginning. We create networks, and these networks are personal networks, such as familiarizing them with the teachers that we know in person, and then secondly, online, because there are databases that are being built up. As I speak, there are 4 different databases and learning tool websites that are being made available. Publications, lots of publications at the moment, and then a drive to interconnect libraries that have Manchu materials by means of using the most up-to-date digitization technology, because this is a major way, not just for historians or art historians to benefit, but for speakers of Manchu to actually see this material, and they can read it, because Manchu is actually quite a simple language, and what surprises Manchu speakers is how quickly they can actually learn it. I stop here.
Thank you. Okay, so we have time for 1 or 2 short questions.
So when they're getting deep, cold plunged into the Manchu and Mongolian script, do they usually come from like writing Chinese characters, or I guess in some cases Korean Hangul, or? And how easy, you say that it's easy for them to learn, but it's easy for them to retain the script, and how long do you think it takes them to really get the script and to apply that to the language that they're also learning at the same time?
Well, the script is easier to learn than English. It's fully phonetic, and it's it's a relatively simple way. You can cluster it. If you've ever learned Arabic, then it's it's the ha, ja, ga, and so on. So it's it makes sense if you see them in clusters. They are surprised by the way that they learn it so quickly, and it's regular. And it's something that you don't need any knowledge of any other Asian language for, because each major East Asian language has its own writing system. Most of them are citizens of the People's Republic of China. You can be so precise. If they're of Manchu nationality, they will encourage each other to write in Manchu script. They have, because they use Romanized Chinese in order to input into computers. So of course there's the handwritten Chinese characters, but then also you have to, if you want to write and you don't speak into your phone, but you write into your phone, then they usually tend to write in Romanized script. That's why they try to copy this for Manchu as well, but the pronunciation is very different. So they often end up on, it's very misleading. And by using Manchu writing from the very beginning, you avoid this. And there's consensus. There's nobody. There was an attempt from the late 19th century onwards to use Romanization, the way that Möllendorff had invented it in order to teach Europeans how to pronounce it, but it's not a good idea for teaching.
Thank you very much.
Okay, a quick comment, yes. You commented about past language attitudes towards Manchu. And it seems that these dynasties are not really taught a lot in history, and the soap operas are all set in the Ming dynasty, because it sounds like the safe and right and proper, dynasty. So do you find that there is an attitude towards the prospect that people could be actually learning the language that is viewed favorably because that revives a national culture, or that there is a slight damper on, people's enthusiasm, that it's not really the done thing today to emphasize ethnicity?
You have Chinese, you have the current CCP policies on Chinese Communist Party policies on ethnicity, but they bypass the Manchus because because there's so many parallels between the Qing Empire and the People's Republic. That's to start with. But so both claim Taiwan, for example. That's so it's a moment of greatness in the eyes of Chinese nationalists. But if they are great Han nationalists, you have a problem. All of China is full of problems like this. But for the Manchus, it's currently a relatively safe position. It was not safe as recently as during the Cultural Revolution. So, for example, here Lars, he was the author of Camel Xiangzi and the Tea House. He's Manchu. He taught at SOAS, my college, and was complaining about the low pay. But he is a banner person who always stayed quiet about his Manchu-ness. Why? Because in 1911, a considerable number of Manchus were murdered. There was a genocide which came with the end of the dynasty. In many of the garrison communities. So people during the 1910s, 20s and 30s stayed completely quiet about their ethnicity. Use of Manchu was completely suppressed. So for about 3 generations, you haven't had any active Manchu learning. That only started in the 1990s, so early 1990s. And from that time onwards, they have been very active. And you have books that, I mean, it's a Manchu-driven Chinese enterprise. So this is not foreigners coming in propagating Manchu. And Zhuang Jifa, who you saw in action in the classroom in Taipei, he was he's not Manchu himself, but he's sufficiently Chinese in order to feel that it's his responsibility to keep this on. I mean, I can't predict the future, but I think that Manchus are feeling sufficiently safe in their ethnic identity to actually take this forward and to continue with the propagation.
Let's thank our speaker again. Thank you.
Thank you.